I'm here with Lauren Elizabeth Animal Art, and I create therapeutic animal art tutorials for daily creative quiet time. Today, we will be painting Reba, the potbelly pig, and this is part 1 of the tutorial. Next week, I'll post part 2. All right, guys, let's get started. So in case you didn't know, I'm creating art for 365 days and blogging about it on my website. This little piggy was my day 5 entry, so when you need a color boost, just go to laurenelizabethanimalart.com and you'll find it there. This tutorial does not have a traceable, but the sketch is easy peasy, so simple that we'll be using our paint brush to draw paint it right over top our background. Now for today's verse, which comes from Jeremiah chapter 29, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." And that's Jeremiah 29:11. In this one verse alone, the word plans is said 3 times. I think the Lord is really making it pretty clear to us that He has an awesome future planned for us. I for sure have seen the Lord work out in my own life, in my art business, and in my recovery, opening doors when I least expected them to open, and getting opportunities in my art business that only God could orchestrate. Not because I did anything special, but because the Lord has a plan for me and my art. So whatever you do, whether it's in art or communications or in architecture, what have you, God has a plan for you and that gift. So now let's take in 5 deep breaths, in and out. Grab a cup of coffee or tea, get comfy, get warm. It's a little chilly in my house right now. But as we paint, let's meditate on this verse and the bright future we have ahead of us in 2022. I'm going to start with my size 11 Arteza flat brush. I've positioned my canvas horizontally and I've applied a coat of white to it just because I'm reusing this canvas. We're going to add 2 background layers, 2 different colors, and the first is just raw sienna. I'm going to thin it out with some water and just push it around my canvas, covering up the entire background. You can see this is really thin and loose just because I'm trying to create this rustic farm background. We're going to apply a coat of bright teal over top of it, leaving some of this rustic color shining through from the bottom. If you'd like to get a little bit more fluidity in the paint, just pushing it around a little bit more easily, add a little bit of white to that. I'm also using Golden Brand white paint. I know I talk about this all the time, but it really helps me to cover larger surface areas just because it's got a little bit more water in it. So whether you want to use white or just a little bit more water, that's up to you. And that's just Golden Brand for my white paint. All the rest is by Master's Touch. Now you can thank the creative animal artist on my YouTube community Facebook group who took the time to vote on this month's tutorial. So once a month, I'll post a poll there, and you guys help me accessorize my animals, or choose the subject matter, or even help me finish or alter the painting that I was already working on. So thank you so much, creatives. I truly value your input and your help. Now, if you're on Facebook and you'd like to influence what I post on my YouTube channel, you're welcome to join us. That's all linked down below.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang syne, we'll talk a cup of kindness.
So once you've applied a coat to the surface of your canvas and the sides, give it about 5-10 minutes to dry, and then we'll go in with our next layer over top. All right, with my dried canvas and my clean damp size 11 flat brush, I'm going to create the color I just love. It's a teal color, and I do that using my aqua, my bright aqua green, my sky blue, and white. So that's bright aqua green, sky blue, and white, and I add a good amount of white because I want this pretty light.
We'll talk a cup of kindness yet for all mankind.
I'm going to apply my paint thicker than what I did with my raw sienna, and I'm going to leave little gaps in between so we can still see some areas of that rusty raw sienna color from the bottom. I want this vibrant teal to be the dominant color of the background. So I want to designate some of the areas to be gaps, showing that raw sienna, and then others I really want to make more pigmented with this teal. Just like the surface, I'm going to cover my sides with this color, but still leave some gaps of raw sienna. I just want to note here that you actually want to still have a wet surface for the next step. So if you're going to paint your sides next, do that relatively quickly so you still have wet paint on the surface. All right, so this is a really fun technique. I'm going to use the tip of my brush, the other end, and I'm going to push down on my wet paint surface and do little spirals. See how I'm doing this? So you can still see a little bit of that raw sienna from the bottom. I like to have mine on the outer edge of my canvas because I'm going to place Reba right in the center. And once you're done creating all these spirals, let it dry for another 5 minutes. Now, if you'd like to create art more frequently or even daily like I am to manage stress, I welcome you to the online Animal Art Masterclass. It's an online platform for creatives of all levels, ages 15 and up, and those who are battling things like anxiety, depression, chronic pain, cancer, or addiction. Animal art therapy was a huge part of how I fought my own demons, and I still use it today to help me manage stress. Now, if you're literally just starting out in acrylics or in animal art, I recommend my new Doxy tier. This doesn't give you access to my masterclass, but it has all my YouTube channel traceables, reference photos, and list of materials all in one place. To learn more, you can find a link to all these classes down below. All right, using my size 1 Arteza round brush, I'm going to mix raw sienna and black. And this is going to be our color that we're going to use to draw paint Reba. And trust me, this is a lot easier than you think. Always start small and then work out. We're just finding the shapes and position of our Reba right now. I'm going to start with the first shape that I know really well, and that's Reba's round face. I want that about 1.5 inches, maybe 1 inch from the bottom, because we want space for our cupcakes. I want to widen out the lower left and right sides, because if you notice, that area is wider than the very top of the back, because I'm not doing the side of her, I'm doing just the top of her back above her ears. Next, I want to draw another circle on the bottom of that circle. This is the snout, which is where we're going to paint that little nose inside. I'm going to attach a curved line on the bottom of the larger circle, and that's going to be Reba's chin. I'm going to paint another curved line in the opposite direction over top Reba's head. The peak of that line is going to be about 1 inch from the top of our canvas. Again, the widest part should be Reba's cheeks. Plus, we're also doing this to give the impression to the viewer that her face is up closer than her back. Alright, so now for those ears. They're both pointed down, the left one more than the right. I'm going to start with the left one. I'm going to create this 3-dimensional triangle. So 2 lines that are connected to the sides of her head, and then 1 line that goes in towards where we think the top of her head is. We can't really make that out very well, just because we see her from the front, not from the side. So that other right ear is upright a little bit more. So again, I'm going to use 2 lines connected to the right side of her face, and then a 3rd line for the top of the ear where that's slightly folded down. I notice that left ear is up a little bit higher than the right, so I'm just going to bring the bottom line down a little bit more. And if you notice, those lines, the very bottom line of both ears, is right about where those eyes will sit. We'll paint that soon. Next, we're going to draw that sweet little nose. I made the top of it a little bit more pointy than you need to. It's more curved at the top, and then much more wide and rounded towards the bottom and sides. We can't forget those 2 little curved nostrils that sit right in the center of the nose. Now I thought I was going to have room for little feet, but then after I created this little line, I realized it just won't work. Those cupcakes will cover it up. So then I added a little bit more height to her back. Next, let's paint on those eyes. What I recommend here that I didn't do is first creating a curved line that's slightly curved down that starts from the bottom of the left ear to the bottom of the right ear. And on that plane, that line you made, both eyes are going to sit. Now for the width of the gap between both eyes, it's going to be slightly smaller than the width of our nose. I gave her long eyelashes, almost like she's wearing makeup, and then I filled in the pupils, or the full eye actually, with black. Now coming down from the center of both eyes, I want to exaggerate the size of that snout. I'm going to bring that line all the way down to where it separates the nose from the chin. I also want to widen out that chin a little bit more and also give her a tiny little lower lip that's slightly pointed because I want to have it so that she looks like she's oinking by having her mouth open just slightly. Again, I was trying to see how I could fit in tiny little feet. If that's something you want to add, by all means go for it. But after a little tweaking of Reba, I just realized it's not going to work. Not for my painting, I mean. So still using the same color, that dark brown with our black and raw sienna. And now we're going to paint on the left side of her head, over top that left ear slightly, her party hat. If you watch me first, I'm going to make a line that goes into the left ear, a rounded base, and then another line on the right side that goes back up to make a point for the top of that hat. And then once we've added more color and fur to our Piggy, we're going to have a band that wraps around the head to hold on this hat. We can't forget about that little marshmallowy poof ball at the very top of our hat. All right, and now for my favorite part of this tutorial, the cupcakes. I want them to kind of be folding in towards Reba. So you'll notice on most of these cupcakes, I'm gonna have a rounded top, but you won't really see the rounded bottom. Now this is just placement of the cupcakes, and I'm not doing the fluffy icing on top right now. I'm just paint drawing the cupcake holders, and then we'll do the icing with their color. So add as many cupcakes as you'd like. I think it'd be really cool to almost have a few stacked cupcakes. I mean, that would be really messy, but hey, Piggies are known for getting messy, so why not? Of course, we're gonna get real creative with their colors, but take this opportunity to make it your own. Now, there is no right or wrong way to paint this, but use this to express how you feel about 2022. Express your goals, your excitement, or your fear, or your confusion. How you're feeling, you can just pour it out onto this painting and don't judge it. Just learn a little bit more about yourself and also have fun in the process. I've just grabbed my size 6 Arteza flat brush, and with raw sienna, yellow ochre, and white, that's a good amount of white, we're going to create our base for all of Reba. So we're going to paint in all of Reba except for the snout, except for the nose, and a few other parts. So watch me as I paint inside our rough sketch. I just want to make a note here, although I have added a good amount of white, you still want to make sure that this is darker because it's our base. We're going to create light strands of fur over top in part 2 and a little bit in part 1, but that's why it's important that you have a color that is dark and not too light. Okay, I'm going to add in white to this paint mixture here and a little bit more raw sienna and yellow ochre. I just want this a hint lighter, and I'll use this to paint in the snout and the chin, but leaving out that nose. Oh yeah, and that bottom lip, we want to leave that out too. Now here I got ahead of myself, as I always do, and I didn't wash up my brush, so I got in a little bit of white into the next paint mixture we'll be creating, which is black and raw sienna. We'll be using that to fill in the ears, but make sure you have a clean, damp brush so that we can go in straight with that color and keep it pretty dark and not foggy like I made it with my white. I'll also use this color to bring out those eyes a little bit more. Magenta! I just love this color so much. This is actually Heavy Body Master's Touch Magenta. All-time favorite color, and I'm going to add some white to it, still using my size 6 flat brush. And you guessed it, we're going to be filling in the nose. Now make sure you save a little bit of this color because we'll need it for that bottom lip. Now if you take a real good look at Reba's nose, that's not mud we're seeing, that's actually a marking. So I want to carefully blend in a darker color, dark brown, almost black. I'll use my size 1 round brush again, and I just want to blend that in while it's wet to the lower left and lower part of the nose. So I mixed in a very dark brown with black and raw sienna, and following along to where I see that marking in the lower left hand side, and then also on the right lower side, and then a little bit in the top. I'm just kind of blotting it in. Now here's a little tip. If you really want that to be blended, more so than how loosely I'm applying it, just grab a small damp brush, not sopping wet, but clean and damp, and then you can literally blend those colors together, the pink and the brown, just where they meet. Now I'll also use this color to outline the outside of the bottom lip. Next, I'm going to go in with just black, and I'm going to touch up those nostrils. I'll even leave some of that beautiful teal color there. You can cover it up if you want, but I like this real abstract. I'll also use this black to better define the mouth. I'll add definition lines where we see those folds on Reba's snout around her face, and then we'll touch up those eyes. Next, I'm going to grab the mixture on my paint palette that is a combination of raw sienna and black. Mix it up if you don't have any. And I'm just going to add little tiny clusters of lines, the start of our first little area of fur, right in between the eyes. Alright, I'm going to switch brushes again, back to my Arteza size 6 flat brush, and using that dark color again of black and raw sienna, I'm going to start going around Reba's head and body to fill in the black markings. Now, no one said you have to follow the exact same markings as her. I actually kind of made up my own as I went. Plus, I didn't want to lose the shadow on the left inside of the ear by painting in that whole ear black. So I just painted black in parts of it. Now the reason I grabbed my flat brush for this is because being our base for all the spots or the large markings, I want to make sure I start to create that fur texture. If you're new to my channel, you may not know that I love using that flat edge to create these lines, especially for animals that have larger markings and are further away. If you watch me, I'm doing two things. As I'm clustering my lines, I'm going up her back and back down on the right, and I'm slightly turning my brush as I move over to the right. This is showing how the fur lays on the pig, and we see on the left side the strands are more tilted to the left and down, and then on the right side more to the right and down. Now I can't really perform that technique on the marking behind this one because then I'd start going into my background. So I turn my brush more horizontally and I just create a more flat spot behind this one on the left side of Reba. I want to lay down just a small little base because we see that fur laying over top the inside of the ear just slightly. It's sticking up, and I want to make sure that's dark so that when we go in with those lighter strands, that will show up nicely. So add as many or as few spots as you'd like. I make some large and then some little small ones. You can follow the reference photo to a T or just make up your own. I love seeing like little hearts and stars in people's animal portraits when they're painting markings. Wonderful. So make sure you do a good job washing your brush because we're going to use some real light colors, mixing up cadmium yellow and orange together. And we don't want any of that brown getting into that hat color. I've also added some white into that just to really thicken up that color. So that's again cadmium yellow, orange, and a little bit of white. I'll paint the entire hat except for the little poof ball at the top. That I'll paint in white. Now I decided to do this at the very end, but you can do that really easily here while this color is still wet. But towards the bottom, I kept it more of an orange yellow, and then at the very top, closest to that little poof ball, I added tons of cadmium yellow and white. And here I go, moving back to my size 1 round brush. I'll just use white to fill in that poof ball. Next, we're going to fill in the cup holders for our cupcakes. I'm going to use the color medium blue, using phthalo blue and white, and my Arteza size 6 flat brush. I'm going to fill in all of them with this medium blue. Use any color you'd like, but you don't want it too dark because I'm going to go in with just phthalo blue to create the little lines, those vertical lines over top that medium blue. I just love finding ways that I can pull out lines and shapes in my paintings. So with a real bold, just Phthalocyanine Blue and my size 1 round brush, I'm going to very carefully create these vertical lines over all of the cupcake holders, leaving just a tiny but evenly spaced out gap between all of them. Now we gotta add something to that bright yellow party hat. And what better than the complementary color of purple? So I'm mixing violet up with some white with my size 1 round brush. And very carefully all over this hat, I'm gonna add the same size polka dots. So I'm gonna have ones that I only see part of it, like around the sides and the bottom, and then I'm gonna have a whole circle just in the center. All right, creatives, we have reached the end of our part 1 Potbelly Pig tutorial. If it's not already there waiting for you, I'm going to post part 2 next week. All right, guys, have a blessed day. Bye.